Hey everybody, it's Ann Beebe. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2019. I'm Barb Hammer, and today is the first day of spring. It is also Persian New Year. Nowruz is Persian New Year, so Nowruz Mubarak. Happy Persian New Year. So the Persian New Year begins on the first day of spring. Anyway, I want to start a discussion today about anarchism. And it's a big topic, but I want to talk about it specifically in conjunction with censorship and the increasing pressure to censor what's called hate speech. And there's this concern about white supremacy because of the shooting, the mass casualty event at the mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. So anyway, I want to start out by saying that there's a little good news here. So I will show you an email that I received today, and I was very, very surprised, I must say. So here it is. So anyway, hang on. Let me show you. Okay. Anyway, so it says, "Hi, Aunt Beebe. Hi, YouTube. Thank you for submitting your video appeal to YouTube after re-reviewing. Oh, wow. After re-reviewing your video, Disinfo Debbie, the Lost Progressive, we've determined that it does not merit restriction. We have restored the video to its original state. Please note that your video may remain ineligible for monetization." Okay, it says why your video was restricted. Every day, users report tens of thousands of videos through our flagging system. We review flagged videos according to our community guidelines and decide whether to approve, remove, or restrict the video. While our team is highly trained, sometimes we make mistakes or additional context changes our perspective. That is why we always want to hear from YouTube users who believe their content may have been restricted in error. So I was very, very surprised at this email, receiving this email. I did not expect to win my appeal, and I have to show you. So this was about, this video had gotten a restriction, so there was a warning. You could still watch it, but all the comments had been removed. The show notes were still there. So it was this video that had gotten the restriction, and the accusation was that I had denied that a violent event had taken place. And I knew that they were talking about the Las Vegas shooting in October of 2017. And I had mentioned that Debbie Lusignan, the same progressive, had claimed that no one was killed or wounded in that shooting. And Scott Creighton of the Church Dog 42 channel had shown in a video that she was wrong, that it was a massacre and many people were killed and wounded. But unfortunately, as a result of his video, his channel, his original American Everyman channel, was purged last year in the Great YouTube Purge in February. So I did appeal, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to, let's see. Okay, so I'll show you here. So this is the video. And before, when you clicked on it, there would be a warning, but there is no warning now. And as you can see, the show notes are all still there, as they were before when it was restricted. But the other thing, yeah, and I even have the links to like Scott's work about the Las Vegas shooting, and all the comments have been restored too. And they're mostly bad, but there are some, anyway, that's the way it is. It's always a mixed bag on YouTube. So this one was particularly hated. I got 72 thumbs down and 25 up, but that's because she has sort of a cult following. And I offended a lot of Debbie Lusignan fans. Anyway, I'm going to show you, let's see. Yeah, so I did appeal. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to show, I had to go through a lot of screenshots because unfortunately on the internet these days, things just disappear. So I am constantly taking screenshots to preserve a record of things going on online. So anyway, sorry. Anyway, that's the way it goes. Yeah, so I did file an appeal. It's over here. Sorry. Anyway, I filed an appeal. Don't worry, I'll find it. I'm sorry. Yeah. Aha, here we go. Okay, so when you file an appeal, they have a link, and it took me to this page, which is kind of weird. So there's a lot of blank space here, and they show the video that has been restricted, and it has this community guidelines appeal, and this tiny print in a tiny little box, and it says, okay, your video is flagged to us by the YouTube community. Upon review, we have placed restrictions on how the video will be shown. Please note that your video will continue to be available on YouTube. If you believe this decision was made in error, you may appeal using this form. The YouTube team will review our original decision and restore the video to its original state if appropriate. We will notify you by email of our final decision on your video. Please note that you may only appeal this video once. So I did this just yesterday. Wow, yeah. I did this. That was quick. So anyway, this is so reason required. So you have to fill in this tiny little blank. And it doesn't allow you a lot of space, so I actually had to keep it pretty short. So I knew it was wrong what they had said. I did not deny that the Las Vegas shooting or any violent event had taken place. I said the opposite, that it had indeed taken place, and it was really a bloody massacre. So I filled it in and had to kind of play around with the wording because you're only allowed so much space. So I said, you claim that this video denied, in quotes, quotation marks, that a well-documented violent event took place. Yeah, end of quotes. I never denied the 2017 Las Vegas shooting happened and said many people were killed and wounded then. That's it. That was my appeal. That's what I submitted. And I won. So I think that's fantastic. Yeah. So that's a little success. And I realized I had another video that got flagged. And YouTube eventually took it down. And I had misunderstood what that was over. I thought it was a Sticks, Hex, and Hammer 666 video. And I thought it was over an accusation of bullying and harassment or something. But it was actually over music copyright infringement. And I did not appeal that correctly. I might have won. I don't know. I'm not sure. So that one was where I had played the whole song, Wayne Newton's song, Donka Shane, over while showing a Sticks, Hex, and Hammer 666 video where he's talking and rambling nonsense. Anyway, that got flagged and it got taken down, and I didn't understand what the flagging was over, so I didn't submit an appropriate appeal, and that one was rejected. They took that video down, but I did play it in another video without the music, so it's still there. But I feel kind of bad because I won this appeal, and unfortunately, Scott Creighton, I had mentioned his work in that video and it got flagged. But for him, he wasn't, if he appealed, he was not able to win that one and his channel was taken down um and I felt kind of bad that I'd won my appeal and he's suffered, real censorship. I've had some challenges with YouTube, but he's suffered some real censorship and had his original American Everyman channel taken down as a result, among other things. So when I told him, he said, well, from now on, he's going to have me file his appeals for him. I was lucky, and so I'm relieved, but I did not expect to win my appeal at all because YouTube is so terrible at censorship these days. Anyway, that's a little good news. But to continue, I want to talk about, anarchism. Where is that? Yeah. So, I started out showing this page of images of what's called the anarchical A. And I haven't had a lot of experience with anarchism or anarchists until recently, since I started my channel, actually. So I do recall when I was traveling in Europe in the 1980s. So I traveled to Europe a couple of times in the early 80s for a month at a time. And I would see spray painted this image, this anarchical A. And I kind of learned what that was. And to me, and I think to most people, it just sort of was a symbol of rebellion. So it's kind of like, I don't know, nobody seemed to take it terribly seriously. It was sort of a defiance of authority. It's kind of like wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt, I guess. I don't know. These are just sort of impressions. So that was my first experience with anarchism, or the symbol of anarchism and anarchists. I don't know. And then I have heard a story about someone had encountered an anarchist who happened to be a bank manager. And this was in Canada. And it was a guy who told a client that he was an anarchist, sort of in passing. And he was a bank manager for a major Canadian bank. So in Canada, there's only a few major Canadian banks. So like in Canada, you know how you hear that expression, too big to fail? Well, that's been in regards to banks in the US, but that's been the norm for, I don't know how long, decades, a century or more, I don't know. So there's always been like a few major Canadian banks that dominate the market in Canada. So that's just the way it is, Too big to fail is just the norm for banking in Canada. So anyway, it's kind of weird that a bank manager, of all things, would be an anarchist. That doesn't make any sense. Became anarchist, I sort of think of anarchists as in defiance of authority. I don't know. So anyway, I'm not, it's such a huge topic. I really cannot get into a lot of detail. So I'm just going to start the discussion, and I want to connect it up with things that have happened recently in conjunction with the Christchurch shooting and the pressure to increase censorship of white supremacists or hate speech, or, so anyway, anarchism. Yeah, so it's just a philosophy. It's an ideology, political ideology, And it just basically, it says that all forms of government are oppressive and undesirable and should be abolished. And I don't know, there's a lot of variations of it. Anarchism and anarchists have also, it's also been described, okay, since I started my YouTube channel, I have gotten to know a couple who have a channel, and they call themselves anarchists. And I think actually they used to call themselves like socialist libertarians or libertarian socialists. So I think that's sort of another label or description for more or less the same ideology. So I've had maybe one or two other viewers who have described themselves as socialist libertarians or libertarian socialists. And what really surprises me about all of these people, whether they call themselves anarchists, socialist libertarians, or libertarian socialists, is before I know what they identify as or what their ideology is, they come across as just sort of classic identity politics corporate Democrats. And so when they tell me how they identify themselves, I'm really surprised by that. Very, very surprised by that. And that's why this pressure for censorship in conjunction with the Christchurch shooting is really surprising. It's surprising the people who are getting behind this, who want to suppress hate speech, or they're worried about white supremacists or Nazis or fascists or whatever. I don't know. It's really weird. So in the last couple of days, let's see, sorry. So that's my video. That's my channel. Sorry, I have a lot of tabs going on here. Here we go. So Scott Creighton on his Church Dog 42 channel did this video about the Christchurch shootings and how people seem to be getting behind this movement to increase censorship, online censorship of hate speech or white supremacists, or I don't know. So he did this video today called Suddenly Christchurch Brings About Our Own Vichy Moment. So the Vichy government was the French government that collaborated with the Nazis in France during World War II. So anyway, there is, I don't know, there's a lot that's happened. So anyway, a few days ago, I got into a discussion about free speech with this lady I'm acquainted with who calls herself an anarchist. And she was concerned about an event in Vancouver, coincidentally, near where I live at the University of British Columbia. And they were planning to host Stéphane Molyneux and Laura Loomer, who are Canadians, like alt media, right-wing alt media, but they're really just sort of like establishment shills or Israeli lobby shills, and they're just really ridiculous and disgusting. And anyway, so there are people all upset about the fact that they were given a platform to spew their nonsense at UBC. And so this lady I was communicating with on Twitter, she got upset about this, and she had posted something about how it got shut down, that event got shut down, and I disagreed with that is sort of a form of censorship. And I don't, she didn't seem to understand that. I mean, I know who those people are, and I don't agree with their views. But I don't agree with censoring people when all you have to do is just easily argue with them and debunk whatever they're saying. I mean, I don't feel they're a threat. You just argue with them and you just show how ridiculous they are. But she was all upset and offended, and she agreed with apparently the censorship of these people. And so we had a discussion, and she didn't really understand that anybody who has a dissenting opinion, not just people like Stefan Molyneux and Laura Loomer, they are getting shut down and censored. So a lot of times people who are on the left, who have very, sort of actually classic real left positions, which are in the minority now, they are being smeared and being labeled as white supremacists, bigots, racist, alt-right, extreme right-wing. And that includes Scott here. And I've been called things like that too. So it's the fake left and sort of a term I used to use, paper progressives, who will, get upset about things that have to do with identity politics or hate speech, and they want censorship, and they silence people who are out of step with their views, and I don't agree with that at all. Anyway, Scott did this video, and it's really weird how... So it was a lady I was discussing with online on Twitter about this situation of censoring people on the right. She didn't understand what I was trying to get at, that if you censor these people, if you decide, well, that's bad, I don't want to hear, that should not be, their views should not be heard, then everybody will be censored eventually. So who's to decide? It's very subjective. So, it's just people just attach labels to smear people and silence them, suppress them, censor them. So it's ridiculous. So anyway, she has this channel, and they put out this video about free speech, basically saying there's no free speech. And Scott did this long video. He does very good big picture videos, really, about topics. So we had actually talked about that video. I'm sorry, but it's so involved, but there has been a lot of back and forth on Twitter about different issues. And this lady had sort of smeared us and called us racist. And I think she's probably deleted that. She's kind of covering her tracks to hide what she said. But she basically, without naming us, was saying we were racist for opposing open borders and supporting workers' rights, and opposing this whole corporate neoliberal globalization agenda, open borders, and what the corporations want for slave labor. And the other thing is that she was sort of expressing her views that she opposes free speech. And Scott had asked her on Twitter, well, does that mean that you oppose the First Amendment? She didn't answer him, and she didn't answer him about, her calling us, suggesting that we were racist, without naming us, really. And so suddenly this video popped up on her channel. So she and her husband have this channel. And it was a video about free speech. So I sent Scott the link and said, well, I guess this is your answer about whether or not she supports the First Amendment. So I'd watched it, and I was really shocked at what they were saying. Basically, there is no free speech. That, if you're not saying, if you are putting out wrongthink, I guess what it is, then you should not be heard. You should be silenced. And so he watched it, and I think he was equally disturbed, and he said, okay, I'm going to do a video about this. And so he incorporated it in the big picture of the Christchurch shooting and the pressure to censor wrongthink is what I'm going to call it. And he just happened to incorporate this video at the same time. And what's really weird is this lady, she thinks that I persuaded Scott or got Scott to do this video, and I didn't. I don't tell him what to do, and he's never, he's never told me what to do as far as my videos. He's suggested videos, we talk about things, but I never tell him to, hey, Scott, would you do this video for me? No, I don't do that. But this lady, she thought I put Scott up to doing this video. No, I didn't. So it's a very good video. It's a long video. But anyway, so it's just amazing. I don't understand. It's really weird how people who call themselves anarchists are sort of in lockstep with what authorities want to impose on us. Makes no sense at all to me. It really doesn't. I don't know what these people are thinking. So they think they're all radical and rebellious. But it's strange. A lot of these people are sort of very privileged. They're doing well. They lead a comfortable lifestyle. Very strange. And yet they call themselves anarchists, and they think they're all rebellious and radical and hip and cool. And it makes no sense at all when they're sort of, as I told you before, they have a lot of the same beliefs that a lot of corporate establishment Democrats have. Very strange. I don't think it's very well thought out. It's interesting. So sometimes I've had an experience with, there are a lot of people who have been raised in one ideology or religion, and they kind of rebel against that, or something happens in their lives, and they haven't really come to terms with their upbringing or whatever they've experienced, and they simply trade one religion or ideology for another. That's what I've noticed. So I am not an ideologue. I am definitely on the left, but I don't cling to dogma, and my views will change on things. And actually, my views have changed a lot since 2016. That's when I really started waking up. So I'm glad I've found the real left again. It's a tiny minority of people, but I believe in the good fight, and I'm not afraid of authority. I believe in the First Amendment, and I know there are limitations to the First Amendment. So way back when I was in high school, actually, I had a little exposure. There was a module. We were allowed to choose courses within, like, there was 1 year we had to take, we had to study U.S. government. So I don't know, it was maybe like 11th grade or 12th grade. I don't remember. So I decided I wanted to take like a quarter of the year and study constitutional law. So I had an exposure to constitutional law, and I learned about the First Amendment and its limitations. And so there are limitations on it. So you're not allowed to utter threats. That's a limitation. You are not allowed to say something that will cause immediate harm or endanger people's lives, like crying, shouting, yelling fire in a theater. That's not allowed. So, but the Supreme Court has upheld First Amendment rights for something that's called hate speech. You can have hateful thoughts, but that doesn't matter. If you don't like people, you're bigoted or whatever, big deal. But if you threaten someone, or you threaten harm to someone, yeah, your views are not protected then, but just saying hateful things or being bigoted about people, no. Those views are protected. And I always say, if somebody wants to make a fool of themselves, let them. So I don't get upset with people who disagree with me. Well, I might, but I'll argue with them. And I don't censor them. And it's just ridiculous, these people who call themselves anarchists, and they claim that they oppose authority or the state, but they are in lockstep with this move to censor people, that corporations, we have corporate controlled government. So it's not the government that I fear, it's corporate controlled government that I fear. So we have the merger of corporation and state, and a lot of online surveillance and controls are being done by corporations in conjunction with the state. So, the state and the corporations are working together, and they don't represent us. They don't represent our views. And I just don't understand how these people who call themselves anarchists are complicit. They're okay with this online censorship. And these are even people who have themselves experienced censorship, maybe like a restraining order or something. And yet they will still condone this censorship. It really makes no sense. They don't understand that people are easily smeared. There are these labels that are thrown around about, white supremacists or alt-right or right-wing or whatever. Bigot. I've been called lots of things. And it is to silence me, to censor me, to shut me down, to stop the discussion, to stop any dissent from the conventional narrative. You're not allowed to question anything. And it's just ridiculous, and I'm really fed up with this. So anyway, this is just sort of to put this out there about how screwed up this whole thing about anarchism or socialist libertarianism or libertarian socialism is. It's just screwy. These are not radicals. These are not rebels. They are complicit in helping corporations to censor us. It's just ridiculous. So I'm going to get into this subject even more. So it's part of a bigger topic I'm going to explore about libertarianism and how people, they're trashing government. Whether you're on the left or the right, they're trashing government. And they're condoning this corporate takeover. Whether they realize it or not, they're condoning this corporate takeover of our government and stripping us of civil liberties, claiming that, private corporations, they can censor because they're not part of the government. It's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous. So anyway, that's all I want to say for now. I will talk more about this. So the good news is my video is not restricted anymore. And here it is. And I guess that's it for now. So I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye.